All right, Anthony. So what we're going to be looking at now is a political cartoon used for Andrew Jackson. It is known as the King Andrew Jackson cartoon. And so the way that we're going to do that is you're going to take a look at the four quadrants of the cartoon. And we're going to talk about those a little bit. I'm going to give you some information to help explain what it is that you're looking at. And then there's going to be some notes at the end to kind of make sure and recap the whole thing. And then you're going to have a bit of a reflection piece, just a real quick couple of sentences on some things. So first of all, what you're going to need for this is make sure you have these notes right here. You see that cool picture of Andrew Jackson there at the top. Okay, so these are the note sheets you want to make sure you have. And we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so the thing you need to understand about political cartoons like this is they were the closest equivalent of the social media and things trending of their day. Okay, there was really no other way to get information out, particularly if you're going after your political opponent, which we'd really talked about when we looked at the election when we were going to have John Quincy Adams versus Andrew Jackson. And really that was that first election where it really gets nasty as far as going after family and things like that. And it really doesn't change significantly when we fast forward looking towards Jackson's election and then Jackson's re-election, things like that. So this cartoon that you see here is definitely a part of that, and Andrew's opponents start to try and build a case as to why he should not be re-elected. Okay, so here we go. All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take that picture and we're going to cover it up. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull away one of these blue panels, and then you're going to take your notes and you're going to write down whatever it is that you see in just that quadrant. I'm going to give you about 30 to 45 seconds, maybe a little longer, to go ahead and write down whatever it is that you see. Okay, so just write it down. And so if we're in the top left-hand quadrant that opens up, you're going to write that in the top left-hand box, things that you see. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you notice or what you see. I just want you to write it all down. Okay, so here we go. Okay, go ahead in that top left-hand box, go ahead and start writing down everything that you see. All right, you have about another 30 seconds or so. Just write down what you see. All right, in 3, 2, 1. All right, now go ahead and get ready and start writing down everything you see. This will be the top right-hand box there in your notes. So write down what it is you see in the top right-hand quadrant of this picture. All right, about another 30 seconds on this section. Four, 3, 2, 1. All right. And here we go. I'm about to pull up the third quadrant there for you. So again, you're going to have about a minute. Write down whatever you notice and see. About 30 seconds. Four, 3, 2, 1. All right. One more quadrant to go here. So again, you got 1 minute. Write down things that you see. About 20 seconds. Three, 2, 1. Okay. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put the whole picture back up here for you. And so as before, you wrote in the 4 quadrants. Now what I'm going to want you to do on the sides of the picture at the top of your notes, okay? I'm going to want you to write down just what is the first 2 or 3 things that you notice. I'll give you a little bit of time to do that, but I really want you to write down two things. If there's a third thing that really stands out for you, I want you to go ahead and write that down, okay? All right, so go ahead, just take a look at the picture. You see here, you also see a small copy on your notes. And just around the edges, what do you notice about it, okay? So go ahead and pause the video at this point, but I want you to write down at least two, possibly a third thing if something really stands out to you, okay? Okay, so you definitely should have those couple things written down there. So I know some of the things that normally stand out to people when they take a look at this picture is, of course, you have the crown here, right? All right, so definitely you have the crown right here. All right, so you have the crown right here. People will notice that. A number of people will notice the scepter, which is this right here, okay? And a lot of times people will notice this and this here. And then of course people will also notice what he's wearing. So the question is, what does all of this mean? Why is it there? Okay, so one of the things I'll tell you is that with a political cartoon, nothing really goes to waste. So there's a lot of detail in there, and we won't go into all of it, but I definitely want to bring out some key features here for you. Okay, so first of all, of course, there's the crown, right? So the crown really has to do with that idea of King Andrew I, and this also goes along with the robes, and really pretty much everything that he's wearing here is just to show this idea that they're trying to present Andrew more like a king, of course, than a president. Okay. And you got to keep in mind that we're not that far removed from the Revolutionary War, and that most countries in the world at the time still have a very, if not an absolute monarch, something pretty close. And so, presenting Andrew as a king goes against the grain of him being the president of the, as it were, the common man. Okay, and so this is the first sort of attack against Andrew. But then what you see in a lot of this other parts of this cartoon is why they think he is a king, or at least acting like a king. And so the first thing you have here, really this one goes a lot more with the crown itself, but this is a scepter. Okay, and scepters are symbols of power, and to the point that, you know, this is how a king or even a queen could have used to say, if a person were to come unannounced. In many places, if they came unannounced, then that person could be killed just by simply showing up. And they could, you know, put the scepter down and basically say, no, we're not, you know, don't kill them, let them, you know, speak, those kinds of things. So it's definitely a symbol of power. And you'll notice it's in his right hand, okay? So the scepter's in the right hand, and then in the left hand over there, you see this scroll type of paper, and it's a little difficult to read, but actually the word on there is veto. And so, and this is the other power that Andrew uses a lot, okay? In fact, way more than any president become before him. Now, truth be told, that was well within his rights as president. He had the power of veto. It's just no president had really ever used it before. And so when Andrew comes along, he says, you know what? Why not use it? I have the authority, so I should use it, okay? Now, what you also see there, though, on that left-hand side is a saber. Now, here's the thing about it. Andrew would have had one of these, having been general, particularly, you know, the hero of the Battle of New Orleans. And so he definitely would have had this, but you'll notice that in the picture, it's not just that he has it, but it's really that his kingly robe there, he's sort of almost like he's opening up just a little bit on that to make sure that you know that he has it. This would be like sometimes in movies and TV shows, somebody who's looking to rob a bank, for example, they'll just simply walk up to the teller person or whatever and just show them the gun, okay? Saying that, well, I have it to use it if I need to. In this case, this would have been very much like Andrew. They're trying to present Andrew as saying, well, look, I have an army. I'm not afraid to use it. Okay, those kinds of things. And he is definitely a general. So this piece fits, but he also is acting very much like he is a general and not a president. Generals can have absolute command and authority. And so when they made this political cartoon, they were trying to definitely make sure that the people see him that way. Okay. Now, some other things on here that are a little bit more difficult to see or maybe understand is you have down here at the bottom, right here, you have this torn up piece of paper, and on it, if you look real close, it says Constitution of the United States. And then you have another piece of torn paper right here, and this has the seal of Philadelphia on it, and then it says U.S. Bank. Now, both of these pieces of paper are torn up and on the ground, which definitely shows this idea that, you know, Andrew Jackson was just ripping these documents to shredded and as if they had no meaning. They're under his feet. He's trampling on them. All of these things saying, again, he is not following these rules. He's not doing what is right. He's ignoring the Constitution. Now, there's definitely truth in what they're saying about him in this, particularly when it comes to the U.S. Bank. Andrew Jackson doesn't like the U.S. Bank. In fact, he thinks it's a terrible institution. And in some respects, he was correct. But by this point, honestly, the U.S. Bank had become too integrated into the U.S. economy for it to just be gotten rid of. Now, unfortunately, he will get rid of it. And this leads to what's called the Panic of 1837, which is really where the economy of the United States tanks and a lot of people lose their jobs and lose a lot of money. Now, as far as ripping up the Constitution, you know, he does do some of that, particularly when it comes to his Indian policy, which will come later on in his presidency. But most people at this point, when this cartoon is actually done, are really referring more to how he is taking more executive authority, in particular, ironically, with the veto that gets them all upset, but it is a constitutional authority. All right. Now, one last one here that's I'm going to point out is right here, and this one's really difficult to read, but it basically says Judiciary of the United States, and it's a book that's just on the ground, okay, and it's just been tossed aside, which is not how we're supposed to treat books. But in this case, Andrew is just simply tossing aside the judiciary, okay, he's ignoring what they have to say, things of this nature. And again, this really comes out in Jackson's Indian policy, okay, where he basically thumbs his nose at the Supreme Court. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go back through some of the information I've already given you, but I want to make sure that you have it in those notes. So you definitely want to make sure you're on the second page of your notes. You'll see some blanks there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the information up on the screen and fill it in. Okay, these are what's called closed notes or guided notes. So big question is, how is Jackson portrayed? Okay. So first of all, of course, as I mentioned, he is dressed as a king. This is where you see the crown and the scepter and the robes. We didn't really get into it as much, but definitely if you were to look at the shoes that he's wearing, those kinds of things, he's definitely dressed as a king. Second, as we talked about, he holds that veto in his left hand and the scepter in his right. These are both signs of power that for Jackson in this portrayal. And then, of course, we have the U.S. Constitution, the arms of Pennsylvania, which is like their symbol. Now, why Pennsylvania? Well, that's because that's where the United States Bank was located, in Philadelphia, okay? And both of these things lie in tatters under his feet. They've been ripped to shreds. He's trampling on them. He's ignoring their purpose and value. All of these things is what they're trying to communicate to the people, as it were. All right. Then, of course, there was the book that I mentioned to you. It says A Judiciary of the United States. It lies just on the ground, tossed off to the side, as if there's no importance to the judiciary in Jackson's world. And then the other thing, if you take a look around the edge of the picture, there's a number of different words that are printed on there of veto memory, born to command, had I been consulted. The born to command is in part a reference to this idea of kings and queens being born into that, what we would now call divine right monarchy. And he was just born to do it, right? So again, adding to that description and portrayal of Jackson as a king. And then the had I been consulted line, that has more to do with members of Congress, so the U.S. House of Representatives, the Senate, being very frustrated with Andrew that he just sort of does things and doesn't talk to them all the time about it, on those kinds of things. And so, so this is a lot of the details about how he's being portrayed. So if you missed any of these as I was going through, make sure you do go ahead and pause the video, get all your notes, because we do have a couple more things to get through on the next slide. Okay, so then this brings us to why. So why was he portrayed this way? Okay, why is he depicted this way? Well, it emphasizes Jackson's contempt for Congress. He gets frustrated with Congress a lot. Jackson wants to do things. He is an Army general, and he wants to do it and get it done. And he doesn't want to be dealing with Congress. So when they do things that he doesn't want, he vetoes it. This particularly comes along with the banking and internal improvements, which we will deal more with when we talk about sectionalism a little deeper and how that plays itself on out. And this is a part of what's called the Whig Party. Yes, they named themselves the Whig Party. Now you'll notice it is spelled W-H-I-G, not W-I-G. This is not the weirdest party name that will come throughout U.S. history. My personal favorite is the Know Nothings. Yes, they decided to call themselves the Know Nothing Party. Anyhow, and you'll see there there's a smaller picture here. It puts the two pieces together, and it says, "Shall he reign over us, or shall the people rule?" And again, this is all political campaign, political propaganda. And these sort of leaflets printings, pamphlets even, would have had this image on it and then the words to explain it. There's an expression that says a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so the image of Jackson as a king would have had a tremendous impact on many people. Not even so much the words they're explaining it, all that, and those are important, but the reality is that first impression that you had is what a lot of other people would have had. They would have noticed the crown and the scepter. They may not have noticed the U.S. Constitution on the ground at first, but as they look closer, because the crown sort of would have grabbed their attention, now they're going to look deeper onto it and see this developing image of Jackson as king. Okay, so all right, so one last thing for us to do here, and that is this reflection. Okay, so what I want you to do is just think about this for a moment and see if you can come up with a couple of reasons why or why not. Okay, so the question is, should there be limits on presidential power beyond what is stated in the Constitution? Why or why not? So again, just take a moment. This isn't something that should take you a whole lot of time, just a few minutes. Just think about, should there be laws, should the Congress make laws that put restrictions on what the president can do beyond what's already in the Constitution, okay? And tell me why you think there should be or why you think there shouldn't be, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to write those actually at the bottom of the notes. You'll see you have about 4 or 5 inches there at the bottom, and that's the perfect space for you to go ahead and write that reflection down, okay? All right, Anthony, well, like I said, take a few minutes, get that reflection done, and we'll be able to move on to the next thing.